Hello, everybody. Welcome to Mastering Midlife, How to Thrive When the World Asks the Most of You. I'm your host, Mark Silverman. Today, I have the sheer exquisite pleasure of talking to Simi Polanski, who is the founder with her sister Chaya of The Frock. It's a high-end, high-fashion clothing company for the modest in the spiritual community. They're coolifying modesty, which I love. My ex-wife, Robin, is on their site right now buying things because I sent her the link. The way we got together is through another podcast guest, Ellie Nash, who has an organization called Mic Drop. And in Mic Drop, people share very raw, very real stories of things that they've gone through in hopes of helping others through the same kind of situation. When we share pain, not only does it lessen for us, but it helps with other people. And I watched Simi's talk about her life and her experiences, which she'll tell you about in a moment. And it just made, for me, resiliency and when things happen in life, just worthwhile sharing. So Simi, thank you for being on the show.
For having me.
And we both, your story is tough to listen to. And both of us cry when we talk about it. And that's okay on this show. So we're going to have people cry in the car, and we're good with that. So would you be willing to just kind of quickly tell the story of why you are now speaking and bringing out a measure? What happened to you?
I was so blessed to have the best life. I had the best marriage. Me and my husband were married for 8.5 years. We met when we were 18. We got married when he was 22 and I was 23. And I have to say that life was easy for us. I had this innocent naivety that life was just amazing. We had 2 healthy kids. And I'm not saying that we never had little struggles, because my husband, he was in school the whole time I knew him, and he worked so hard. I didn't see him on so many weekends, and it was an internship and starting a company, and we had 2 children, and then I was pregnant with a third, and we had regular good life struggles financially and stress, homework, school, being on the phone too much, but we had a great life. That it was this innocent, I was standing in like green pastures and green fields. That was my perspective of life. That's the outlook I had on my love with my husband. And I did know about pain and suffering on a bigger level, but it never really hit me to my core at all. One day my husband, he just started a new job, and he came home. He was actually at work the whole day. And he called me, he said, Sim, I don't feel great. I'm just like taking an Advil, but I might leave work early. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And later on, about 5 PM, he called me. He's like, Sim, I'm feeling so sick. I can't even train home. I think I need to take an Uber. So he's like, I think I have the flu. He came home from the Uber. He walked in, and he looked like he had the worst flu of his life. And for the next 24 hours, he was home really sick with what we thought was the flu. 2 days later, it was Wednesday morning, he woke up, it was like 7 o'clock, he wasn't sleeping, and typical flu symptoms. He's like, Sim, you got to call the ambulance. Like, I feel so sick. This is really bad. So we called the ambulance, but that morning I was actually going to my 12-week follow-up test to see, it was like the Down syndrome test of the baby, and I was really nervous about it. I said, you know what? My brother was happy to go with him to the ER. I thought he'd be home that night. I went to my OB, he took the hospital, and my brother even called me, and he's like, the doctor said she was fine. He'll probably be home by tonight. They just gave him some fluids. And a couple of hours later, when I said to my brother, I'm going to come meet you. He said, you know what, Simi, bring him a bag, because they said they want to keep him overnight for observation. Well, that night turned into 3 weeks. And that night turned into She'll being rushed into an emergency heart surgery, because the doctor said that your husband actually doesn't have the flu. He's got a really bad virus that attacked his heart. And they said to me, minutes after I got to the hospital, I thought he had the flu. They said, Simi, there's a 50% chance your husband may not make it alive out of the surgery. I was like, excuse me? What are you talking about? And they literally rushed him off. The last time I saw Shua semi-conscious for 3 weeks. And for 3 weeks, all of Shua's family and friends were by his bedside. And if I can tell you that there was a spiritual tsunami for 3 weeks because Shishin went viral. There were thousands of people, human beings, Jewish, not Jewish, adults, children, praying for Shua, for his survival for 3 weeks, because they knew his condition was so bad. And it was crazy because he went from being a completely healthy marathon runner. He's 31. We only ate Ezekiel bread, you know. We were super healthy. I think the doctor said he survived so because he was so healthy. Go figure. And the reason why they didn't realize that he was so sick was because he was so healthy, his vitals didn't drop right away. But during that entire time in hospital, I didn't think Shua was ever going to die, because Shua was never going to die. You know, sometimes in life, you go to sleep sometimes and you tell your spouse, oh my God, I just had this crazy thought that what if I die, or what if you die? Shua was never the person that was going to die. It was me. I don't think I'll ever come to terms with the fact that she's a human, is not alive in this world and doesn't have the chance to be here anymore, you know? Still so shocking to me. I think even in 50 years, if we do another podcast, I'll be like, Shua didn't live? No, that doesn't make sense. Because he just got his PhD in psychology, and he was the most beautiful soul. He had the most beautiful soul that I've ever met. And it's not even just being biased, because anyone that had met Shua, they were like, wow, I want what he's having. What is he on? He had this way of connecting with human beings in such a real way that the week after he died, when hundreds of people came to me, they would say, you know what? Shua's one of my best friends. And I was thinking, I was like, I know Shua can't be best friends with that many people. He didn't even have the physical time to be your best friend. And that was the point. It wasn't about the time he spent with them. It was the quality that he gave to them. He really listened as a person. And he was a psychologist, and he had so much to share. And he had this gift of speaking to audiences that when he got in front of an audience, he had the ability to tap into where they were, who they were as a human, and be like, how can we connect? How can we make both of our lives better together? And that's what he was able to do.
So I have a question. So this story is, is frightening and heartbreaking. You have, two children, and you were pregnant with your third, and this was shattering for you. Why did you get on stage to share this story?
You know, when they asked me in the beginning if I wanted to do mic drop, I was like, no. Because I had shared, and I continue to share my experience in social media. I write a lot. And I said to my sister, I was like, what am I going to share already that I haven't, because I write all the time? And then I think one day, Shua, and I have this Shua moment all the time, because Shua he has his hands on my shoulders right behind me. And he's like, Sim, I'm right here. I'm holding you. I'm right here. And I used to tell Shua all the time, he used to be like, Sim, people have their doubts, what they're doing. He was in school for almost 10 years. And he's like, I just want to be done already. I said, Shua, I promise you. I said this in my mic drop speech. And this was something that, it's a vision that I'll always have with me. I believed in Shua so much because I knew that he was going to do this. I said, Shua, I promise you, I don't know when it's going to happen, and I don't know how, but I promise you, you are going to go around the world speaking one day. because the world needs to hear what you have to say. You are going to make the world a better place, one human being at a time. He already did before he spoke. And I just had this sure moment, and he's like, Sim, I want you to do this. I want you to speak for you. He's not even the type to say, I want you to speak for me. But I felt like I need to share his story and his being in the way that he can't anymore, but that he would have done like no one else could have. So I was like, I need to do this speech in public and speak.
And I think I told you just before we started this conversation that I met Shua through that talk. Like, I feel like I know him in my heart. Yeah, you and I are going to cry through this whole thing, aren't we?
Cry the whole time.
I
the word she's saying, she's just crying.
I'm holding it together. So the question, so cool. So so we're talking about real life issues here, and the thing I focus on is resiliency. I was listening to or reading somewhere. It was Brene Brown, where she said, when someone has tragedy, when someone has hurt, don't look away, right? Look them in the eye, meet them there. And people don't do that enough. So not only are we not helping to heal the people who have the tragedy, but we don't have that, we're not healing ourselves, and we're not learning how to live with that in the world. Earlier in one of my first podcasts was interviewing a woman named Diana Bonici, and she took us through the stages of grief, right? And talked, how do I deal with the waves of grief in my body? How do I deal with my head saying things? And then how do we deal with people who are grieving? So for me, this podcast is enough just for me to meet you where you're grieving, feel my own grief for the people that I lost that we talked about before the show started. And then the next is maybe the person in the car who's on their way to work who needs a good cry before they walk into work, so that they can, because you run a business, right? You're somewhat famous. You have children that need you every day. And I love that you said earlier that your daughter said, we can cry every day. It's okay, right? Your daughter encourages you.
That's our motto.
So since you did this talk, and now you have all this feedback from what you shared, what have you learned since that has gone out in the world?
It's really great that we're doing the podcast now and not 12 months ago, because I was in a completely different place. And 12 months ago, I used to wake up every day, and I had 3 children, and I used to pray to God that he would hit me by a bus. I would say, just take me. For months and months, I would, in the shower, on my bathroom floor, in my bedroom, I would beg and scream. I would say, please just end it now. I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this. Because it's really hard to take your own life, that. So I
think that's by design.
By design. So I begged God to take me. I said, you know what, just take me. And in the beginning, I was living in this world by survival, because I knew that I had 3 children. And for a really long time, that's what kept me going, because I knew, I was like, I don't want them to have to feel the pain that I do. They already have their own grief for losing their father, and how, in whatever way that they internalize it now, but for the rest of their lives, they will continue to have their own grief. But I said, I don't want them to feel a pain somewhat close to what I feel, so I need to be here for them. But that only takes you to a certain point, because like I said, I was living for them. I was breathing, but I wasn't alive. And there's one thing to be alive, living just because the breath is coming in and out. But that's not a way to live. And it came to a point in my life where my body, I think my mind, my body, my soul, it couldn't handle being physically alive any longer without any actual life inside of me to fuel my existence. And I think deep down, somewhere inside, there was the voice that said, Simi, you know what? You actually love yourself. You deserve to live. Because for the longest time, I felt like I didn't want to live. I didn't deserve to live. Shua was my everything. You know, I met him when I was 18. And the minute I met him, not the minute, I spent that evening with a whole group of friends. And later on that night, I said to my sister, I tried to get his attention the entire night to no avail. He barely gave me a look. And I said to my sister that night, I was like, Chaya, I'm going to marry that guy. She's like, you're crazy. You don't even know him. He said like 3 words to him. I said, I'm going to marry him. I chased him for 5 years, and he said no to my chasing many times. And after 5 years, when we dated, finally, I don't know if you want to hear about this part of the story.
I'm just enjoying you. So go on.
Okay. So I was at an engagement party with my best friend, and his sister was there. And I sold my soul to his sister because I wanted anything for him to call me and say, let's go out. So I sold my soul in the most tactful way possible. And I was actually dating someone else at the time. And a week later, I got a phone call through my brother-in-law and said, you know, Shua's sister just called. Shua wants to date you. I said, what? Really? I said, don't mess with me. I was like, this is emotionally, it's not going to work. Don't mess with me. Like, if it's not true, then I don't think I'll be able to handle. But he did. So 2 weeks later, Shua was living in Ohio at the time. He came to New York. And as soon as I met him, I was like, dude, I didn't say this, but I knew, dude, we're getting married. You can take as long as you need, but I know we're married. So date me as long as you need. Ask me whatever questions you need. I'm going to say whatever you need to say, but we're going to be together. So 5 years later, after we met when we were 18, we got married. It was the most amazing love story, and I'm going to love Shua till the day I die. I think, I don't know if it's possible, but I love him more and more every day.
I feel it. I totally feel it.
But where was I?
So the question was,
yes.
Since you shared on stage so eloquently, and now you've had some time, what have you learned? What's new now that you didn't have, that you got when you walked off the stage and gotten the feedback from so many people? What do you know now that you didn't know before?
I know now that I deserve to live. And not only do I deserve to live, I deserve to be really, truly happy while I'm alive in this world. And that I am going to do whatever it takes. I'm going to fight for my happiness. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean, some people say they think, oh, when they see someone being happy, they're like, oh, it diminishes their pain. I've realized now that I will always live with this pain. But I've come to understand that I will also live with happiness.
And how did you come to that understanding? Where did that come from?
It comes from me accepting and knowing that I don't have to get rid of this pain. That this pain is become a part of me, a part of my body. I'm standing in the world now from whereas before I stood in this world from green pastures and green fields. I had this innocent naivety about my experience in this world. And now I'm standing in this world with a filter of pain. And it's an experience that it's not going to go away. And I think accepting and validating it to myself that this is now part of me allows me to open myself up to receive happiness. Because if you feel like you need to diminish the pain or get rid of it, it's a fear of either losing that loved one. It's a fear of losing those memories. It's a fear of saying, no, that wasn't part of my life, or diminishing who they were in your life. But when I know that, no, Shua is a part of my life and he will be with me forever because this pain is so real forever, it allows me to add on this extra happiness that I'm going to fight for, and realize that I can have both. And that is what life is about, balancing this dialectic of pain and happiness, joy and sadness. Because initially when Shua died, I didn't think it was possible to hold both.
That's key. That's such a key insight. I know it's very visceral for you, so even using the word insight is a little light, but that to hold both, that life holds both. I think one of the reasons I love talking to people like you and I can hold this is because I was suicidal. I was in such pain that I said the same thing. I would, please someone hit me with a bus. And now I've found that pain and I found the joy and love in life, and they both exist. So I think it's exquisite that you share that.
It's like, when people say living through the pain, and I think what I do is I'm blessed. I think as a person that I feel things very deeply, and as frightening as feelings may be, I allow them to come in and I sit with them. So if it means I'm on the floor in my bedroom for 4 hours, then that's what it's going to be. But I think allowing that pain and validating those experiences and not denying them are what really helps me live through this experience. And Shua was all about validating those feelings, because as soon as I say to myself, you know what, I am sad that Shua died. I miss him every single day. I miss the father of my children. I'm lonely because I miss that person next to me that had the answers, that made me laugh, that made me smile. When I allow myself to accept it and say, yes, this is true, but today I'm going to have a kick-ass day. I'm going to work really hard. I'm going to go out for lunch with my sisters and laugh. It just makes me realize that I don't have to forget that. And I think that's a fear that a lot of people have in fighting for that happiness, because they're afraid that it's going to negate the experience, the negative experience, the pain that shapes them. So what I tell people is, no, it's shaping you. That is you now. Smiling on top of that doesn't take that away. It's your body part. It's your soul. That's your makeup right now. No one can take that filter away from you.
What do you want for your children?
This is it's a really it's a hard question, because, and I say, my dear, because I want my kids to be happy. I want them to grow up, and when they die, I want them to say, I had the best life. And me even just saying that makes me feel really sad, because I do, and I want them to have the best life, and Shua would also want them, if Shua wants them to have the best life. But then you think, how could you have the best life if you lose the best dad? He was the dad that was going to help them write their college papers and grade them and read them and edit them and he was the dad that was at every sports game. He was the dad that, when there was parent-teacher conference, I was the mom that was not there. He was the only dad that was there. He was the dad that would get down on his knees and talk to them and not scream. And he just got them, So I want my kids to say they had the best life. But I also know that them saying they have the best life knows that it's going to come with this sadness, that when they watch videos of their dad, they're going to be like, wow, I didn't get that, but I'm still happy, And I want them to feel Shua with them wherever they are, because he is. And even Shua was never a taboo subject in our household. Death was not a taboo subject. Sadness pain was not a taboo subject from day one. And since Shua died, sounds so trivial, but it's so true. I never used to get parking spots. The day Shua died, I live in New York City. I live in Brooklyn. Everywhere I go, I get a parking spot the second I need it. So my daughter says to me, every time I park, I said, Daddy got us a spot. She's like, Mommy, Daddy doesn't do everything. Daddy isn't everything, because when the sun shines, I was like, look, he's shining on us. She's like, Mommy, how come you feel Daddy all the time and I don't feel him all the time? And this is when we were driving. And I said, you know what, I feel him maybe because I'm a little bit older and I see him in you. And I think that as you get older, you'll feel him in a different way. And it's okay if you don't feel him right now. But I promise you, when you get older, you will feel him and you will know. And at that moment when I said that, Shua used to drive around in the car. He used to order boxes of fig bars from Costco and keep them in the car. And when he would see the homeless people on the street, he'd hand out fig bars. And he got fig bars and not Nature Valley bars because they need to be soft, because not all people, they don't have the teeth. So it was fig bars. As Emanuela said that to me, and we were having this conversation, she's like, Mommy, there's a guy in the street. He's asking for food. I don't always have food in my car. I try to have the fig bars, but I'm not sure. So we happened to have a granola bar in the car, and we literally had that conversation. I opened the window and I to the guy and I said, that's from Shua and this is from Emanuela. I said, you see, Daddy's right here. But that's what I want for my kids. I want them to say they had the best life, and I want them to know and feel Shua and the person he is and the father that he would have been for them.
That's beautiful. And what do you want for the young woman or young man who's in the car listening to you now? What message would you like them to walk away from from this conversation?
Everyone has pain on different levels. And I'm not here to ever judge or measure people's pain, because everyone has pain in their own experiences. I want people to really just feel it, that they can give themselves a chance for life, even though they're in pain. Pain doesn't have to dictate the way we live, the choices we make. The pain will always be there. But living and working really hard to find that place inside where you really love yourself and say, you know what, I deserve to have a great boyfriend. I deserve to be in a good marriage. I deserve to be treated well by my employees. I deserve to find my passions. I deserve to be happy. I deserve to eat well. I deserve to look good. The pain that you've had, either as a child or at work, it doesn't have to confine you to a box and limit you to fulfilling your potential. And that's something that I think about every single day. Because every single day I have that pain. And every single day I said, I'm going to have, and I'm not that type of cliche person that says, I've got one chance at life, make the most of it. That was never me. It was never me, and it's still not. That's not the cliche slogan that's going to get me. The slogan that's going to get me is going to be like, Simi, I know you're hurting, but you deserve to live at the same time, and you can get both. And one doesn't have to diminish the other.
Thank you for that message. That's something I can take with me, and if you're listening, that's something you can take with you. How can people find you? On Instagram and thefrock.com?
Yes, we are on the Instagram. Our handle is thefrocknyc.
Okay.
Share a lot about what we're wearing. We share a lot about how we're feeling, all in one. It's a sartorial, emotional, I would say, space. We have a website, thefrocknyc.com, where you'll find all our frocks, all our clothing that we create. And you could DM us and email us at sisters@thefrocknyc.com.
And we will put all of this in the show notes. Thank you for sharing your heart and your soul with the people who are listening and with me. And to everybody else, thank you for staying with us. I hope you had some tissues, and I hope you leave with some joy and the life that I get from speaking with Simi. And I love you, and have a great rest of the day.